from honor to shame. That's how one critic put Dustin Hoffman's path after the shocking claims in 2017. At 87 years old, the two-time Oscar winner is hard to spot on the streets of New York because he wears dark glasses and the world is interested in how he changed physically, but the real story is darker. How one of the best artists of all time lost his fame, his power, and the respect of the people who worked for him. His birthday is August 8, 1937, and he was born in Los Angeles, California. His family wasn't wealthy or linked to the stars of Hollywood. Harry Hoffman, his father, used to be a set supervisor at Columbia Pictures but lost his job during the Second World War. He sold furniture to make ends meet after that. Lillian, Dustin's mother, always wanted to be in show business but never had the chance. Dustin's life has been hard from a very young age. They were worried because he couldn't talk until he was 3. He grew physically and mentally more slowly than most kids his age. They didn't have much money and moved around a lot. Dustin felt like he didn't belong anywhere because of this. He had braces on, was short for his age, and had bad acne as a teen. He also did badly in school, which made him feel even more out of place, especially since his bigger brother Ron did so well in school. Dustin used comedy to deal with everything. A lot of the time, he made jokes about his teachers to get attention and like from other people. Because his parents wanted him to have a skill, they chose for him to become a stage pianist. At the time, this was a big deal for Jewish families. Dustin joked later that his parents thought he would become a pianist one day. He wasn't excited by music, though. Dustin tried to study piano at Santa Monica City College after high school, but failed. He dropped out of school after only 1 year because his grades were so bad. He took an acting class by accident because someone told him that you can't fail at acting. Everything would be different after that chance choice. Dustin turned 21 years old in 1958 and went to New York City to become an actor. He didn't have a plan and only had $50 on him. He shared a cheap apartment with Gene Hackman, Robert Duvall, and other struggling artists who would later become famous. It was hard to live in New York. Dustin did a lot of different jobs to make money. He had jobs as a waiter, a toy salesman at Macy's, a typist, and even at a mental hospital. He was fired from a job as a waiter because he listened to music at work too much. Dustin never gave up wish to be an actor. He went to acting schools, taught kids in Harlem, and even run a few small shows. He tried out 5 times for the Elite Actor Studio before he was finally accepted. But no matter how hard he tried, he was always turned down. He didn't get paid for his first stage part in New York. He barely had enough cash to live, and he even had to depend on jobless benefits. He still wouldn't quit. In 1967, he got his big break when he was cast in The Graduate. Dustin was 29 years old and still having a hard time as a performer. Benjamin Braddock was written for an actor with a lot of height and good looks, like Robert Redford. With his short height and strange looks, Dustin didn't seem like the right choice. He was so sure he wasn't right for the part that he meant for his test to go badly. However, Dustin caught the attention of director Mike Nichols. He told him that Nichols thought he was great for the part and that he is Jewish on the inside. It wasn't easy to film The Graduate. Had to play a 21-year-old, and Bancroft, who played Mrs. Robinson with him, was only 6 years older than him. At first, some people didn't believe Dustin. One of his co-stars even said he looked small when they were on screen together. But the movie was a huge hit when it came out. People really liked how Dustin played the awkward and confused Benjamin Braddock. It made more than $100 million, which made it the most successful movie of 1967. Then Dustin was nominated for an Oscar, and his career really took off. He was only paid $20,000 for the part, but it changed his life forever. The success of Dustin in The Graduate changed how Hollywood thought about leading guys. Before him, most stars were tall, good-looking, and fit the typical hero description. That wasn't Dustin, but people loved how emotional he was and how approachable he was. Dustin Hoffman has worked very hard, is very skilled, and has taken many risks in his performing career. Kramer vs. Kramer got him his first Oscar on April 14, 1980. He played Ted Kramer in the movie, a dad who was getting back together with his ex-wife and getting ready to take care of their kid. It took 79 days of hard work to make the movie. Hoffman asked that the script be changed so that the character would seem more real. In fact, he broke a wine glass on set to make his young co-star Justin Henry cry for a sad scene. His performance was honest and moving, showing how Ted changed from a busy worker to a loving dad. He got his second Oscar for Rain Man on March 29, 1989. He gave an amazing performance as Raymond Babbitt a genius with autism. Hoffman learned a lot about autism over the course of many hours. He went to hospitals, talked to families, and researched a man named Kim Peek, who gave him ideas for the character. Hoffman learned parts of the phone book by heart and wore Raymond's clothes for 12 weeks after shooting was over to stay in character. Because he worked hard on the movie, more people learned about autism. Because of the movie, more people learned about the disease. Hoffman is amazing because he can play such a wide range of parts. He played Ratso Rizzo, a sitcom artist who was having a hard time in Midnight Cowboy. He put rocks in his shoes to make them limp and only ate crackers and cottage cheese to lose weight. He also spent weeks living on the streets to understand what his character went through. He famously said, "I'm walking here," when a real taxi almost hit him while shooting the movie. It made the scene stand out. Hoffman took a different path than Tootsie. He spent hours every day putting on makeup to look like the woman he played, Dorothy Michael. His voice got softer, and he even dressed up as Dorothy and went to his daughter's school to see if people would believe him. Yes, they did. Hoffman's view of women changed after he played Dorothy. Afterward, he said it made him think about how unfair beauty standards were and how he had once rated women. He worked with some of the best stars and directors. Mike Nichols pushed him a lot while making The Graduate, making him film the same scene over and over. Hoffman worked with Laurence Olivier on Marathon Man, but Olivier didn't like the tense way he was playing. Olivier told Hoffman, "Why don't you just try acting?" after he stayed awake for days to look tired. Even though they were different, they made great scenes together. Hoffman is famous for his method acting. He lost a lot of weight and wore real chains that hurt his skin for Papillon. During Marathon Man, he was awake for so long that he began to see things that were not real. And the movie had to end. He learned to count cards so well for Rain Man that casinos wouldn't let him in while the movie was being filmed. But this level of commitment wasn't simple. Hoffman had stress and worry issues and had trouble sleeping because the sad part of Willie Loman and death of a salesman stuck with him. He went to the hospital after the show. Hoffman thought his method was worth it even though it had these problems. "You're not an actor if you're not willing to risk your sanity for a role," he said one time. "You're just a camera guy." It was different for Dustin Hoffman in the 1990s and 2000s. He used to play lead parts, but now he plays roles that are unique and based on his character. He played Captain Hook in Steven Spielberg's Hook on December 11th, 1991. He had never done anything like this before. The movie made $300 million around the world, but some reviewers didn't like it. Still, Hoffman did a great job as Captain Hook. He made the character both scary and fun to watch. This was the start of a new part of his jobs. Schwartz played the lead role in Wag the Dog, a political comedy that seemed almost too real in 1997. It came out on December 25th, just a few weeks before the real-life Monica Lewinsky incident. Hoffman played Stanley Motz, a Hollywood director who makes up a war to draw attention away from a scandal involving the president. Because it was so good, it got him his 7th Oscar nod. The movie made $64.3 million, even though it cost $15 million to make. This showed that Hoffman was still a big draw for moviegoers. Hoffman was in the science fiction movie sphere with Sharon Stone and Samuel L. Jackson on March 6, 1998, the next year. The movie didn't do well at the box office. It made only $73 million, even though it cost $100 million to make. Hoffman's part as psychologist Dr. Norman Goodman, however, showed that he was open to trying new types of movies and giving strange stories more depth. The 2004 movie Meet the Fockers, which came out on December 22nd, was a lighter turn for Hoffman. His role was Bernie Fockerer, Ben Stiller's character's funny and strange dad. The movie made $516.6 million around the world, making it a huge success. It got Hoffman in front of a younger crowd and showed off his funny side. Little Fockers, the follow-up, came out on December 22nd, 2010. It made $310 million around the world, even though reviewers didn't love it. He tried something new when he was 75 years old. He made a movie called Quartet about opera singers who are no longer active. It had its world premiere at the Toronto Film Festival on September 9th, 2012, and came out in cinemas on January 11th, 2013. Maggie Smith, Billy Connolly, and Tom Courtenay were just a few of the skilled actors in the movie. In order to make the movie feel real, Hoffman hired former musicians to be extras. The classical music from the movie even made it to #1 in the UK. Thoughtful direction from Hoffman earned the movie $60.3 million, even though it only cost $11 million to make. Hoffman surprised everyone in 2008 by starting to do voice acting. In Kung Fu Panda, he played Master Shifu, a wise but grumpy wushu master. The movie was a huge hit, earning $631.7 million around the world and being nominated for an Oscar. He said it was hard for him to do voice acting, but he kept at it. He came back for the follow-ups in 2011 and 2016, and each one made more than $500 million. A lot of people loved Hoffman's voice in the Kung Fu Panda series, which was a huge hit. Hoffman has recently taken on smaller, but more important jobs. He was in the Meyerowitz Stories with Adam Sandler and Ben Stiller in 2017. The Netflix movie was about how families interact with each other. Hoffman played retired artist Harold Meyerowitz, who was having a hard time dealing with his legacy. People who review movies said that Hoffman gave one of his best performances in years. In 2018, he played a profiler who needs to solve a theft case in the crime drama Into the Labyrinth. Hoffman played in Sam and Kate with his son Jake Hoffman in 2023. The movie was about a dad who was having health issues and his bond with his son. Hoffman was able to show how a father and son interact in real life through this part. Behind the scenes of shooting Kramer vs. Things were very tense between Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep in 1979's Kramer. Hoffman hit Streep in the face without warning before their first scene on the first day of filming. She was 29 and he was 42. Hoffman took out his anger on her while they were shooting because he was going through a messy divorce himself. That one time, he whispered the name of Streep's recently dead fiancé, John Cazale, right before an emotional scene in court. He wanted to make people feel real feelings. In one scene, he threw a wine glass near her head without telling her. Some of the broken glass got stuck in her hair. When she spoke to him, Streep told him gently, "The next time you do that, please let me know." Hoffman did more bad things after that. He made up lines on the spot to surprise Streep and sometimes said rude things about her body. When they first met, he touched her breast and joked, "I'm Dustin, Burp Hoffman," which was meant to be annoying. Streep stayed professional through it all and gave a performance that won her an Oscar. Years later, in 2018, she said Hoffman's acts were too much and wouldn't be allowed at any job, not even on a movie set. Hoffman and director Sidney Pollack had a lot of disagreements during the 1982 movie Tootsie. A lot of fights happened during the 7-month shot. Hoffman worked on the project for years and had a lot of control over the movie, which made his power battles with Pollack constant. Hoffman and the author changed scenes a lot over the weekends, which made it take longer to get new script pages on Mondays. These changes messed up the plan and caused heated arguments on set. Pollack came up with a strange way to solve the problem. One thing he noticed was that Hoffman was easier to work with when he was dressing as Dorothy Michaels. Pollack began to wait until Hoffman was fully dressed and makeup before talking about changes. Dorothy was more willing to work with Hoffman than Hoffman himself. This workaround kept the production going, but Hoffman and Pollack were still angry with each other after shooting was over. That he would give up his Oscar to work with Hoffman again for 9 months. Even with all the trouble, Tootsie was a great hit and was nominated for 10 Oscars. Hoffman has had a reputation for being difficult to work with throughout his career. People talk a lot about how great he is, but it has caused problems on many sets. Hoffman stayed awake for 3 days straight during the 1976 movie Marathon Man to make his character's tiredness seem real. It is said that his co-star Laurence Olivier told him, "My dear boy, why don't you just try acting?" Hoffman was very careful about every little thing, not just his performance. He insisted on 150 screen tests over 2 years to get his Tootsie characters look just right. He often wanted a lot of takes, which made directors and players angry. He changed parts of the script for Kramer vs. Kramer and made everyone work long, hard days to get things done just the way he wanted. John Malkovich, who worked with him on the 1984 movie Death of a Salesman, said he was hard to work with. Hoffman was always looking for approval and took over practices, making it hard for other people to do their jobs. But a lot of people agree that his demanding personality often leads to amazing results. Late in 2017, serious sexual misbehavior claims against Dustin Hoffman were made public, which shocked Hollywood. It began on November 1st, 2017, when Anna Graham Hunter wrote a piece for The Hollywood Reporter. She said Hoffman had groped her when she was 17 years old and working as an intern on the 1985 production of Death of a Salesman. This first charge made it possible for more stories to be told. Soon, 7 more women came forward with similar claims that went back decades. Accusations ranged from rude comments to serious claims of sexual attack. Melissa Kester, who had just graduated from college at the time, said Hoffman hit her while they were recording sound for the 1987 movie Ishtar. Another woman, who only gave her name as Carolyn, said Hoffman abused her in a recording studio at the same time. A woman who was friends with Hoffman's daughter said that he showed himself to her in a hotel room. Other women told stories of abuse that went back even further. Catherine Rossiter, an actress, said Hoffman touched her inappropriately several times while she was in the 1983 Broadway production of Death of a Salesman and the TV movie based on it. A woman who went by the name Pauline said Hoffman touched and exposed himself in front of her when she was only 15 years old in 1973. Altogether, these stories about Hoffman's behavior over the course of almost 50 years painted a troubling picture. It was amazing how many and how often these claims were made. Hoffman, a two-time Oscar winner and one of the most respected stars in Hollywood, became one of the most well-known people linked to the hashtag #MeToo movement all of a sudden. People's views on his work and legacy changed a lot after the news came out. A lot of people were confused when Hoffman's answer to the accusations was a mix of apologizing and denying them. Hoffman quickly put out a statement after Anna Graham Hunter's story came out saying, "I have the utmost respect for women and feel terrible that anything I might have done could have made her feel uncomfortable. I'm sorry. It doesn't show what kind of person I am." As more claims were made against Hoffman, he grew more defensive. On December 4th, 2017, at a public event celebrating Wag the Dog's 20th anniversary, host John Oliver talked to him directly about the claims. The argument got very hot very quickly. Hoffman said that his actions on the set of Death of a Salesman were normal for the time, since it was 40 years ago. "I don't know what's going on. The people, not the things that are written, give me the background I need." Many people were angry that he tried to say that his actions were caused by the times, because they thought that it made the charges less serious. Hoffman also said that in the 1980s, it was common for people to make bad jokes and comments about adults on movie sets. People who didn't agree with the argument said it was just an excuse and not an admission of wrongdoing. Hoffman spoke less loudly as more women spoke out. Some of the major claims were denied by his lawyer, who called them defamatory lies. Hoffman, on the other hand, tried to stay out of the public eye by canceling events and not doing interviews. For many, these revelations changed Hoffman's reputation for good. Inside Dustin Hoffman's life, there are two big stories about marriage. He married and burned for the first time in 1969, right after he graduated and became a big star. For 11 years, they were together. Dustin took in Karina, N's daughter, and had a daughter with her in 1970. But they had a hard time getting married. Dustin worked hard at his job, and the stress of being famous made things worse. Dustin later admitted that he had been cheating on his wife during this time. They got divorced in 1980, and it was hard, and got a settlement of $4.5 million, which was a lot of money in 1980. The second time he got married, things were very different. Dustin got married to Lisa Gottsagen in 1980, and they've been together for over 40 years. Lisa met Dustin for the first time when she was 10 years old. She told her grandma, "One day, I want to marry him." They met again after 12 years and quickly got married. They had 4 children together: Jake, Rebecca, Max, and Alexandra. They talked about having kids on their first date. Lisa wanted 6, but Dustin, who already had 2 kids, said 4 was enough. That's what happened. They've been married for a long time because they value family and share the same beliefs. Lisa once said, "Getting married was all about being a family." Dustin changed a lot after he became a dad. When he made Kramer vs. Kramer in 1979, the story of a father fighting for his son was a lot like what he was going through when he got divorced. Dustin later said that the part he played made him a better dad in real life. He learned how important it was to be with his kids. With Rain Man in 1988, he made this link between his work and his personal life once more. Dustin spent time with autistic families to get ready for his role as a smart autistic person in the movie. He thought more about how to raise his own children after this. It's interesting that his 7-year-old son Jake had a small role in the movie, which may have made Jake want to become an actor someday. Dustin loved his family so much that he turned down big parts to spend time with them. He turned down the lead part in Ghostbusters in 1984 because it would have kept him away from his kids for too long. He didn't feel bad about putting his family first, even though it cost him a big chance. Dustin was also very interested in politics. He spoke out against the Vietnam War and joined protests in the 1960s. Even though it might have been bad for his job, His work often showed what he thought. In the 1976 movie All the President's Men, he played a reporter who found out about the Watergate scandal. The movie showed how important it is to tell the truth to those in power. A lot of his time in the late 1980s was spent working for environmental issues. Race to Save the Planet, one of the first big films about climate change, was read by him. He backed many efforts to protect the Earth over the years, such as those to stop cutting down trees and polluting the ocean. When Dustin was active, it could get him into trouble. Some people in Hollywood were upset when he spoke out against the Iraq War in 2003. Still, Dustin said, "If you see something wrong, you have to say something." Besides that, he fought for LGBTQ+ rights and against racism. Even though she is 80 years old. In 2017, he went to the Women's March with his granddaughter, which showed that he was still interested in working for justice. The year 2013 was a tough year for Dustin. He was told he had cancer, but at first he didn't tell anyone. He had surgery at one of New York's best hospitals and had radiation and drugs that were very hard on him. Dustin didn't give up, even though it was hard. He insisted on driving himself to his meetings so that he could feel normal and in charge. He later said that he was scared, but that fear helped him get better. He showed that he was strong all through his life by beating cancer. People have only seen Dustin Hoffman a few times recently. He is a famous actor who is known for movies like The Graduate and Rain Man. In 2024, when he was 87 years old, he was seen walking in New York City. Few people knew who he was. He looked nothing like the old him. He no longer looked clean and put together. He went for a scruffy white beard, a black hat, and shades instead. People who knew him before saw how much he had changed, and they were interested in what his life was like now. It wasn't just his face. It looked like his whole style was different. He was seen eating lunch with his wife Lisa at a restaurant in New York City called Il Buccio on October 1st, 2024. He wasn't dressed in a way that makes people think of red carpet events. He wore a baseball cap, leggings, and a hoodie instead. The length of his gray hair made him look even more different. A lot of his fans couldn't believe that this cool guy was the same star they had admired for years. People began to talk about how even the brightest stars change as they get older. Many news outlets said Hoffman wasn't recognizable, which shows how much time can change even the most known faces. But Hoffman is still interesting to look at, even with all the changes. In 2024, on March 3rd, he showed up at the opening of Kung Fu Panda 4 for the first time. In the movie, he does the role of Master Shifu. He brought 2 of his grandkids with him this time, which showed a sweet and family-focused side of him that fans don't often see. Hoffman is still working even though he is 87 years old. He is still working on interesting projects. A science fiction movie called Megalopolis, which was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, is one of the biggest. It's coming out on May 17th, 2024. Adam Driver and Natalie Emmanuel are just 2 of the big names that Hoffman stars with. The story is about putting New York City back together again after a terrible event. A lot of people are excited to see Hoffman in this movie because it's one of his first big hits in years. People have said that Hoffman might quit, but he keeps showing them they're wrong. A crime film called Tuner, which is being directed by Daniel Rower, and a movie called Luca Mortis, which is already done, are both coming out soon.